the Ann Arbor Public Art Commission meeting to order December 7th at 7:04 p.m. And I will go ahead and start with a roll call. Allison Buck.
Present in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Great. Jamal Bufford.
Present in Superior Township, Michigan.
Great. Myself, Sarah Fuller, present in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Sophie Grier.
Present in Ann Arbor. Am I muted?
No, we heard you loud and clear. John Kotarski.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Wonderful. Peggy Leonard.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Marionetta Porter.
Present in Ann Arbor.
All right. Lynn Song, I believe, is not present this evening. And last but certainly not least, Mary Thiefels. Oh, and I think you're muted, Mary.
Yeah, I'm present and in Grass Lake.
Wonderful. All right. So I invite a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I need to make one change on the agenda if I could, Sarah.
Okay.
We have staff here to do a presentation for the city project. So could I move Hillary up on the agenda to do a presentation?
Yes. So do we want to do that then before report from staff, or just move report from staff up?
That'd be fine. Either way.
Okay, then we will do that.
Because I think I actually should have another section in there where she's listed as a presentation rather than I put her in staff, but.
Okay, so we can move that up.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And Mary.
Yeah, as panelists, do we have an option to share screen?
I can let you share screen, yes.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so do I have a second for the amended approval of the amended agenda? Thank you, Allison. All right, and then let's see. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from our October meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So I guess we can then get started. It does look like there
Sarah, usually we have discussion after approvals, if anyone has any.
Discussion of the minute.
And then we can all approve.
Any discussion from the October minute? All right. Then I believe we have approval to move forward to the current
Vote on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. Oh, we vote on it. Okay. So everyone in approval of
Yes.
Yes. And
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So I see that we do have a public comment. Olivia Glenn, a community high school student. So perhaps we'll start with that public comment there. And Olivia, you have the floor.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Great. I don't actually have like a public comment like to add to the discussion that's being had, but I'm like sitting in on this so that I can do like a project for my government class where I can sort of like participate and listen to a discussion in some type of government thing that I'm interested in. I'm really interested in artwork, so I thought this would be perfect. So I'm just looking forward to like hearing about everything.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Olivia, for joining us.
Thank you.
And yes, so thank you. Okay, well then let's move on then to the presentation from Hillary. And Hillary, you have the floor.
So I'm Peter Sanderson. I'm with
Hi,
Washtenaw County
Peter.
Parks. I'm currently texting with Hillary, who has just lost internet in her entire house.
Oh, no.
So we're trying to figure this out. So maybe we could, if you have something else to do for a little bit, maybe we
Sure.
can try and sort this out and come back to us.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If she
Positive
has Zoom
vibes
on
are
her
being
phone, she
sent.
might be able to use her phone too, just as a
Well,
suggestion.
Right. Well, but we had a PowerPoint that we
They've
wanted
got a
to
PowerPoint
share.
presentation.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna work through some stuff. We'll be
Okay.
right back.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sending you good luck. Yes. All right. So then why don't we go ahead and move on to new business? And that would be Mary, your presentation from Treetown murals.
Good evening, everyone. So good to be
Hi,
here. Welcome, Olivia. Glad you're tagging along. So this is something I wanted to bring to the attention of the Public Art Commission. There is some exciting new movement for a couple of new public art projects that are going to be happening in the city of Ann Arbor starting now. A lot of the groundwork is being laid right now, but the work will actually be completed in 2023. If I can share my screen, I will show you the site locations and give you a little bit of information. And let's see here. So the two target locations are what we're calling, the project we're calling Murals That Bridge. We have two sites that have been identified for renewal. And this one is the Huron Street. What you're looking at is what I'm calling the underpasses, which are the concrete wing walls, and then the overpass, which is the kind of metal, structure that kind of goes over. So the Ann Arbor Railroad, which is actually owned by Watco, goes through the town, as most of you know, and actually creates these sort of gates for people that kind of come in and exit, visitors and residents, at 6 different locations throughout our downtown and area. So these spaces we see as being highly transitional between neighborhood and city. Also, so many people that come into our community come off of 94 M14. So we have here the Huron Street underpass, and you can kind of see where the art is proposed to go. So the wing walls, and then actually the bridges over top the metal. We have identified a couple other sites. And so this is looking the other direction. So the metal overpass on this direction as well. And then on North Main, when you're going up to M14, this is a mural that was completed in 2002, so 20 years ago, by myself and another local artist. It was commissioned by Peter Allen and Associates, who have their offices and own a couple of buildings here on the North Main corridor. And they actually reached out about kind of restoring this mural. And the timing was pretty perfect because there was already some funding coming in and some interest to actually have this whole space kind of overhauled. So here you can see it going into town as well. So we're talking again about the wing walls and the concrete and also the metal overpasses. So we are actively fundraising. We have reached almost half of our goal of 250,000, which is philanthropic money from local people. Larry and Lucy Nissen have stepped up. Peter Allen and Associates have stepped up, as well as Destination Ann Arbor. So those are our 3 funders at this time. And we are working with Constellation Consulting out of New York to do the rest of the fundraising and development. So we're pretty confident that we will raise the money needed to kind of overhaul these sites. They have been through like surveys that we've conducted, people have watched art go up in these sites over the years, but they still remain pretty blighted and uncared for. Being such a prominent spot in our community, these have been identified as sites to get public art. So Freetown Murals will be kind of leading this initiative. And I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar and let you all know what was going to be happening. So I'm happy to answer any questions that folks may have, or just happy to kind of let you all know.
What's the process for selecting the muralists?
There is no process at this point. I and my husband will be doing the first base designs. So Treetown Murals has already been selected to do the creative design. Because of our community connections with youth and with other artists, we will definitely be bringing in other voices. So that just means that we will be kind of overseeing the initial design and the review of that.
These are really exciting projects, Mary and John.
Well, I think this is absolutely wonderful. This is what has been discussed among art commissioners for years about gateway projects. So there's always been talk about this is towns have art using it as a gateway into the town, a signifier, an identifier, and this is exactly one of the kinds of projects I think that people thought about, and I don't think there could be anybody better than Treetown Murals. I've watched Mary. I've watched you grow your business. I've watched you interact. I don't think there's anybody that could do outreach as well as you. I mean, your experience with young people in town and the quality of your work is just absolutely superb. So I'm delighted that this project is coming into being and that you are leading it. So kudos to you. That's absolutely spectacular.
Cool. Thanks so much, John.
Allison.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this project go forward. I know, Mary, you had been telling me about this project earlier, and of course, echo John's sentiments that glad to see you guys are on it and making it happen. You mentioned there were 6 of these. Is the idea that these are just like the 2 pilots and that eventually we'll do the rest? And also, I'm super excited about the fact that the metal part is incorporated in the project now. I love to see that you're like slowly inching your way and getting headway with the railroad to do more and more of those. So that's exciting as well. But yeah, how are we going to do all 6?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this is kind of a flagship project that will just gain a lot of momentum. The sites were identified with the interest of really connecting the neighborhoods with the city, but also just giving something to people that come in and out of our community every day. Hundreds of thousands of people visit and drive under those underpasses. And I think they go unnoticed, if anything, because they need some love. Watco has given their full approval and support for the project. So for those of you that don't know, this is how I got my start as a muralist, was actually being arrested for painting on one of these underpasses 25 years ago. And I've used this story in so many different ways to work with young people, especially because we just didn't know what the avenues were in which to do it correctly with permission. Certainly the charges were dropped, and that summer, 7 of us painted all of the underpasses for the first time, and this was 25 years ago. So this is a project that is super near and dear to my heart, and let's see how it goes.
I love that story, Mary. I'm glad it's coming full circle. And there's a lot of
Totally.
traffic on Huron, so you can sit
Yeah.
there and actually enjoy
We
enjoy.
were at Delonis today doing a window painting workshop with many of the residents there, and getting a view from the Delonis window. It's just that the whole space just needs a renewal. So it's just super exciting to see that funding is coming in and that people are passionate about it. I digress.
Do we have any other questions or comments for Mary? All right, I'm going to take that as a no. I wonder, Peter, if there has been any update on the internet situation.
Hillary is en route to her sister's place. She should be there in about 5 minutes.
All right, perfect. Well then, why don't we go? Sorry.
I'll just wait for her to jump on the meeting, and then I think whenever it's convenient, we can do that.
Fantastic. That sounds like a plan. So then I think we can move on then to report from staff. So I think first on the agenda, we have the ARPA funding update.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We have, the ARPA funding.
Yes. Could I make an invitation here? We have a new council member who's joined our public art meeting this evening. I'm just noticing that Cynthia Harrison is here. Welcome. Cynthia, do you want to introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about you?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia Harrison, and I am the new council member for Ward 1. And let's see a little bit about myself. First of all, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I was born and raised in Ann Arbor. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I'm a community program manager for the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living. Currently there, I'm working on a program for reentering citizens. I'm really excited about that. Let's see what else. My arts background all through elementary and high school was, singing or dancing. I actually lettered in choir, I think a cappella choir. So that's my connection to the arts. My youngest, I call him an artist. He's a lyricist. So I selected the Public Arts Commission just because of my family's love for the arts. And I just thought it was an appropriate choice to make. So I'm happy to be here. I was chatting with Lynn earlier. I was like, I didn't realize there was just one liaison from city council. So I guess I've replaced her. So I just ask that you be patient with me. I'm learning. We were just assigned, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, officially our assignments. And believe I've got about 8 committees and commissions. So hello.
Welcome.
And Jamal. Hi, Jamal. Is he there?
Hi, friend.
So Jamal, you and Pam graduated together, right?
You did, yes. Go Rats, Huron.
That's right. Yes. Go Rats. I graduated from Huron like Jamal, but Jamal is younger than myself, and he's peers with my baby sister. So, and he was a big supporter of mine during my campaign. So thank you, Jamal.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Cynthia. I think I just have one update for the Arbor funding. I don't have a lot of information on it. And I think last month I may have reported that we had some initial bids that came in. We actually had no bids to do the programming for the Arbor funding. And we're looking at a couple of different ways to move that forward. And I believe we're going to move forward with that, actually carving that out and hiring someone to run that program for us. I'll have to share more information as I know more. I know right now we're working with legal to put all the documents together and determine how we move forward from here.
Sophie?
Yeah, Vanita, could you tell us a bit more about that? I mean, what kind of solicitation was put out, and what were the criteria, and how would people know about it? And maybe just some more information would be interesting.
It is part of the normal city bidding process. So folks that would have been interested in participating in bidding and putting in an option to be the facilitator of the Arbor funding, they would have gone through our purchasing process. We had no submittals at all to run the Arbor funding program. And as everybody knows, we have local organizations that have expressed interest in possibly doing the facilitation of the Arbor funding. Staff is working with purchasing and having some additional meetings with legal to understand how that would work and how to set that up. And that's kind of all I know at this point until I have actual more feedback from legal. If I know they're working on some documents, they're looking at trying to figure out how much would need to be paid, what portion, and how they would disperse the funds to individuals who might want to participate, who will hold those funds, how do we deliver the funding. So there are a lot of other steps within it that we weren't quite prepared for because of what didn't go through the bidding process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm still slightly confused, I'm afraid, because I know when we had the meeting, whenever it was last January, I can't remember what it was. No, it can't have been January. Whenever it was, that we had an open meeting and lots of people came in and with ideas about projects they would like to do. And I'm not quite sure how those dots get connected of the people who are interested in doing projects, and how would they go about finding some funding for their project, what would be required for them.
Maybe I can fill in a hole here.
Yeah.
So between that meeting and putting out the bid, Sarah, Jamal, and I met and put together a proposal for how those funds would be delegated. I believe we all reviewed in a meeting those criteria that we had put together. One of the items was that someone would administer those funds and that the city would hire an organization to administer the funds. This is the bid to find that organization that would come up with how they would get the submissions and would manage the granting, the re-granting.
Okay.
And so apparently no one applied to do the re-granting. And I guess my question was, I assume that the organizations who had expressed interest got direct letters about the opportunity. Is that correct, Vanina? And they just didn't apply.
As far as the bidding process,
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they applied. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I didn't see. I don't know. We had nobody apply. No one even submitted a bid.
Right. And I'm just asking, did they get direct letters? Because I know, like, for example, when the gallery in the city hall and like the commission, when that went out for bid, organizations got direct letters saying this is an opportunity that you can apply for administering the gallery within Chambers. Because I was at the Arts Alliance at that time and remember getting the letter and then putting together our proposal and whatnot. So my assumption is, and if you could just confirm at some point, that those types of organizations that we kind of thought would be inclined to do this type of work, like Creative Washtenaw, the Art Center, the Community Foundation, those types of places, got some sort of notification that this was an opportunity, that would be good to know, at least if they got that kind of notification.
I can certainly check with purchasing to see if they
Okay.
sent something out like that.
Yeah. Just because we didn't get any bids, so otherwise.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Mary, did you have your hand up?
So will it go back out to bid? Again?
I don't know that answer either.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Again, we're working with legal to figure out how to do this. I understand that we can do it one of two ways. We could send it back out again, or we have the option of looking at local companies and having them do this work. But I have not been able to get complete details back yet from legal. We've just had a few conversations because it really just kind of happened. I think we were all a little surprised that we didn't get any bids at all. And so that kind of threw us into a completely different way of thinking about this and looking at it.
Is there a percentage that organization would make if they were in charge of this regranting process?
I don't know, Mary. I have none of those details at all. I just wanted to bring it forward to you to clarify, because I think I reported last month that we had actual bids and we did not. So I wanted to clear that up and just let folks know that we're still working on this.
When we had put together the recommendations, there was a certain percentage of funding that would go to whoever administers it, because we understand that that is work. And
well, thank you so much for the update on that, Vanita, and we will stay tuned as things progress from there. And Peter, it looks like you have your hand up there.
I just wanted to let you know that Hillary's back and she needs to be promoted to panelist, please.
Is she actually here? I don't see her. She's not showing up on, is she?
She's under the attendees.
She's not on my list unless I'm missing her.
I see her under attendees.
Yeah.
I don't see her. Oh.
So I believe Hillary has joined us now. Welcome, Hillary. We're glad that the internet situation has resolved itself. And if you need a few minutes, or if you are ready now to present, that is up to you. Are you ready to go now?
Yeah, ready to go now, but I hate to interrupt in the middle of your conversation. So if this is a good time for the rest of you.
That's perfect. We had actually just finished that update. So if you would like to have the floor, please do.
Yeah, thank you. And unfortunately, my internet didn't resolve. I actually got in the car and drove to my sister's house, who fortunately only lives about 10 minutes away. I am Hillary Hansel. I'm a park planner and landscape architect with the Parks Department. And I'm going to be sharing my screen here in just a second. But I have with me today, I'm not sure if he's a panelist yet, Pete Sanderson with Washtenaw County Parks. So Pete and I are collaborating on one of the two projects I'm going to be talking to you about today, which is the Barton Vandemer pedestrian tunnel. So Pete will be chiming in later in the presentation. And Vanita, I just want to make sure he's a panelist as well. So,
yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, you are. Hi, Pete. So really quick, just for kind of the agenda, we'd like to talk to you about our goals today, just kind of what we're looking to get out from this meeting, since this is our first time interacting with your group, provide an overview of both of these park projects and kind of our preliminary budgets, and then run through just some broad ideas for what we're thinking public art could be in these spaces, some of the considerations we're taking into account, and really looking to have a discussion with all of you, and then hopefully get some clarity on the next steps going forward in the process. And so in looking at goals for today, so, this is our initial discussion with all of you. I've actually not engaged with the Art Commission before, so I am new to this as a city staff member. But these are the two projects that were recommended by you for public art incorporation. And so for us, part of what we'd like to hear from your group is understanding what the expectations are for the public art, what constitutes public art, kind of what the goals of the art are for it to achieve, understand the process that you're looking for in relation to these two projects. We'd also like to provide an overview of the interpretive master plan that Washtenaw County Parks developed for the Border to Border Trail as kind of a cohesive thought process for how art and other interpretive elements are included in these areas. And then, as I mentioned, discussing preliminary budgets and ideas, and then also discussing this role of non-city partners and private donors, because we actually have a few different partners in the tunnel project. So with that, hopefully everyone can see this map on my screen here. We just wanted to kind of show that these two projects are both located near the Border to Border Trail, which is the dark blue line. And they kind of, there's this orientation on the southeast and northwest kind of could act as these gateway elements into and out of the city. So it's just really interesting timing that they're both happening in similar time frames. They have similar budgets. So while they don't have to have similar public art, there's also this opportunity for the art to relate to one another and maybe play off of each other. So just to provide some context there. Oops. And then, so the first project, I'll just kind of give a broad overview. So the Gallup Park wooden vehicle bridge, many of you might be familiar with this. It's the bridge you cross over if you drive into the park, kind of heading southbound. It's basically reached the end of its useful life. It was built in the 1970s. It wasn't built for the level of use that it currently receives today. So we've been planning for its replacement for a few years now. And the proposed bridge that we'll be replacing it with will be built actually just next to it, just west of the current bridge. It will actually retain the single vehicle lane, which we think adds a lot of like traffic calming. So you'll still have to yield to any oncoming traffic on the other side, but we'll actually double the sidewalk or trail space on either side. So it'll be a little bit bigger. We're looking to incorporate wood elements. It'll actually not be made entirely out of wood just because of the new vehicle loads that it must carry. But we're looking to incorporate natural elements so it still has a park-like character and feel. But we do need to use those strong materials because of fire truck apparatus loads, because of the construction equipment that needs to access the south end of the park, because this is really one of the only ways we can get vehicles into that southern end of the park where it's cut off from the rest of the city with the railroad there. And then in addition to building the actual bridge itself, we'll also be doing some reconstruction to the park road in that approach and how it connects to the new bridge, as well as adjusting the surrounding trails and how they connect to the bridge. We're also looking to pull the Border to Border Trail crossing away from the bridge. Currently, for those that might use the bridge, currently the trail crosses just south of it, and there's not a lot of reaction time or sight distance for cars to kind of see what's happening and see who's coming across. So this is a safety improvement to kind of give better visibility to this very, very busy crossing. So that's kind of in a nutshell the project. It's underway right now. We kicked off design this fall, and we're anticipating that construction could begin as early as fall or winter of 2023, probably not being completed until the following summer of 24. Our current estimated project cost is around $3.5 million. But again, this is kind of a very early stage cost estimate. And so as we move through design, refine what's actually occurring here, that number could change. It looked like what was typically recommended to council was about 1% of the project budget. So I think we were talking about $35,000. But just for clarification, the project cost that we're talking about is all in both construction, actually construction costs as well as the design engineering costs. And then the last thing to know about this project is it has received ARPA funds, so the American Rescue Plan Act funds that the city, selected certain projects. So we have about $2.3 million going towards this project. And with that, I'm just going to do another brief overview of our second project, and then we can kind of get into the discussion for public art. So the second project, that we're partnering with Pete and Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission on is this Barton to Bandimere pedestrian tunnel. We're also partnering with the nonprofit group Huron-Waterloo Pathways Initiative, which we shortened to HWPI. They're funding partners. We're kind of shared. We've been working on this project for several years now, starting with the feasibility study back in 2019 that confirmed that this was a project that was feasible. And so now we're currently in design as well with a similar timeline for construction in 2024. So what this project is you'd actually be adding a pedestrian tunnel kind of just north of the North Main M14 interchange beneath the railroad tracks here with Bandimere Park and the Border to Border Trail on the east and Barton Nature area on the west. So currently there's no safe and legal non-motorized connection. Unfortunately, many people choose to trespass and cross illegally at the railroad tracks, which is very dangerous. And it's also a critical gap in the border-to-border trail that Pete's been building, both from the Ann Arbor side and the west side. So this will be kind of an important connection tying those two together ultimately. And so our total estimated project cost at this time is about $4.5 million. So again, public art budget around $45,000. And just to talk a little bit more about the tunnel, it'll be very similar for those who are familiar with the Allen Creek berm opening tunnel. So it's a concrete culvert that's actually precast offsite ahead of time. And so this process has a lot of approvals. There's a lot of complexities in how it's actually constructed because we actually have to have the railroad temporarily shut down for 24 hours, allow us to get in, do this big open cut, dig out a spot where then they place, with a large crane, this tunnel, and then cover it all back up, put the railroad across, and trains are running about 24 hours later. So something to keep in mind, kind of the complexities we'll be working with on construction here. And so timeline for the tunnel project, this past summer, we began design engineering, geotechnical work, kind of doing soil borings and getting the information we needed. We're using the same design team as the Allen Creek berm opening, so they're very familiar with what the processes are. And then so looking into 2023, we kind of expect the whole next calendar year to be finalizing design and then obtaining all the railroad approvals that we'll need as well as permits. It's a little bit of a wild card. The railroad approvals are not a fast process and they're not always linear. So we can't know for sure how long that'll take, but this is what we're hoping for. We're also hoping to kind of define the public art component, do some additional community engagement, kind of informing the community about this project, and looking at anticipated construction in 2024. So again, very similar timeline to the Gallup Park Bridge. And so with that, I'll actually invite Pete to speak a little bit about some of the public art he's been working on at other sites along the Border to Border Trail, and then some of the considerations that we're kind of thinking of as we look for public art with these two projects.
Great. Thank you, Hillary. So thanks for having us here tonight. My name is Peter Sanderson, and I'm a landscape architect and project manager with Washtenaw County Parks. My main job is building the Border to Border Trail throughout the county. Over the past 4 years, we've built about 16 miles of trail. That includes some reconstruction, working with the City of Ann Arbor and lots of other partners within the county. We also work with the Huron-Waterloo Pathways Initiative, as Hillary mentioned. The county has an agreement with them, and they've been raising significant private funding to help with construction of the project. So working with them, H2BPI, and our other municipal partners like the city and the metro parks, the DNR, and others, we developed a few years ago a border-to-border trail interpretive master plan. And the idea with that was to provide high-level guidance about what might make sense to do along the trail in terms of interpretive elements. It could be historical, it could be ecological, it could be art. It can be whatever's there, but the real question that it was trying to answer is, how can we give this a consistent look, or at least a consistent theme across the entire county? And also, why is this piece of art, or why is this specific thing being interpreted? So it gave us a lot of kind of broad categories, but was not getting into any sort of design detailing or anything like that. So I think Hillary covered a lot of the other parts here, but one of our big questions for you tonight, and especially from myself as somebody that does not work within the city's process internally, is kind of understanding your public art selection process and how does that installation work? Because as Hillary mentioned, we have a complex engineering project going on one hand, but we also want to make good public space, and we want to figure out what's the best way to merge these two processes or run them in parallel so that we can end up with a nice product at the end. But could you go to the next slide, Hillary? So this is an example of a tunnel, and the first slide there too. We built this tunnel in 2020 underneath M52. So this is out by Chelsea. And we used a stone facade, but this is a very similar type of construction of what we're talking about doing under the railroad, but this is underneath state trunk line highway. We'd used Core-10 steel panels on the side, and these mimic these are right in the area of Stouffer Hill, which I don't know if you can read the text there, but that's the second highest point in the county. So it's basically a topographic map of the area. And then the other side shows a bathymetry map of the lake, which is behind the viewer in this case. So we're kind of relating to the natural features using, I believe it was water jet carved Core-10 steel. And this is also a gateway between the Waterloo and Pinckney recreation areas. The highway is the divider line. So this was something that we built during the midst of the shutdown in 2020, which was great because we had to shut down M52 for a few weeks. But you can see we did stone facade. This is real stone, not concrete or not cultured stone, and pavers, and there's lighting on the inside as well. And then later on, there was a sculpture that was donated to the project, which was installed in the vicinity as well. So just kind of in the B2B master plan, or the interpretive master plan, it does call for occasional large scale interventions, kind of leaving it open-ended. You know, they could be temporary, they could be permanent, but something that generally encourages movement through the space was kind of one of our big goals, because the trail is about movement. So something like that would make sense. Or it could be something small. We called them secrets and surprises in the master plan, something that could be uninterpreted, but something that somebody could discover. But you can see here, we're kind of choosing more natural themes so that it might not seem out of context in a park or along a trail near the river. Next one. So the last thing I'll just mention is the general project overview. There's two main components to the project. One is building a trail through Barton Nature area, kind of along the existing main trail that goes through between the two pedestrian bridges. That part's been approved by the Parks Advisory Commission already. And then there's the tunnel area, which we're really focused on. We think that it would make the most sense to try and incorporate public art in the tunnel area, to leave the nature area as a nature area experience with the minimum amount of human intervention. So we were kind of envisioning this like a gateway into and out of downtown Ann Arbor, which is very timely given your other gateway discussions this evening. But this is really a gateway to the west side of the county. We've been doing a lot of work out there to connect to Dexter and to Chelsea and then up to Stockbridge. And there's about 20 miles of existing trail to the east, all the way through the city of Ann Arbor and into Ypsilanti, and now extending into Van Buren Township in Wayne County. So next slide, I think, Hillary, if you want to take over here. Is that right?
Sure will, yes. Yeah, and so again, these are just some things to think about as we go through the next slides. Talking about the definition of public art. We are looking for some aesthetic enhancements to the tunnel and the bridge. So similar to what Pete showed, whether there's a stone facade or other materials. And do those things qualify and meet the goals of public art, or is public art something different and something separate? And then keeping in mind with the public art, like what's appropriate given the park settings, how can it relate to its surroundings? And just kind of understanding that, when people go into these natural environments, it's usually with the intent to find some respite from the built world and just making sure that any interventions aren't too stark or something that would take away from that experience. Also thinking about safety considerations, just view sheds, making sure that people, the art isn't blocking visibility, knowing that there's not a lot of light in these places, there's not a lot of eyes on them in the evening time, and just considerations for maintenance and potential for vandalism as well. We've talked a bit about it and kind of given the complexity of the design projects, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to kind of integrate public art into the design of these spaces. So we've been really kind of thinking that public art is something separate from the contractor work. Possibly it could be added at the same time or afterwards. But that's something we've been kind of thinking at this point. And so for location options on the tunnel, we could talk about whether it's something on the wing walls, on the sides, like these orange areas, whether it's something within the actual concrete culvert itself, this brown thing, on the exterior facade or within it. There's some concerns from our design team about not being totally aware of what the vibration from the railroad above could do to something within the tunnel itself. So they said, it's probably okay, but we can't say for sure. And then, probably the simplest option is, something adjacent to the tunnel on the site. And then similarly, looking at the bridge, there's opportunities near the bridge. So there's potentially a proposed like a river overlook spot. It could be something near the bridge and the border to border trail on the south end, or it could be added onto the bridge itself, possibly on the railings, or we're considering maybe piers that act as gateway features on either end of the bridge itself. So just some of the areas we're thinking that public art could be. And then some of the ideas we've been throwing around, is there some, really interesting sewn design, on the tunnel facade or wing walls or applied to the bridge itself, something that still feels of the setting and of the earth, whether that could qualify. Looking at, is there art embedded into the wing walls, or embedded to the stone? These are some Andy Goldsworthy installations that were done. Other options are, for the tunnel, possibly a mural inside. This is one in the Netherlands with tiles that were printed. And then, obviously always an option for a statue, something standalone near it. Always a little, I intentionally included this one, the stainless steel kind of abstract sculpture, because it is something that's very contrasting with the environment around it. So just being, something for discussion. Also these kind of slabs of stone are really interesting, but thinking about like things like safety and whether people can see if someone's hiding behind there or what they're about to encounter. A lot of opportunities for statues and standalone art pieces. Another thing we thought could be interesting is a monumental cairn. These are kind of traditionally much smaller in scale, but kind of trail markers where there's stacked stones. And again, two Andy Goldsworthy interpretations of a kind of monolithic version of that, and whether you could have one at either end of these two gateways into and out of the city on the border to border trail. And then lastly, this is kind of a whimsical one, some sculpture that was added to bridge railing, maybe more after the bridge. There's something that could be added after the fact, that's within the scope of, the cost that we have, and the budget we have to work with. And so, just pulling this back up for opening up discussion, two other things to consider. We have relatively modest budgets. I know that public art can be very expensive. And so in this, $35,000 to $45,000, budget, if that's, what would be appropriate for these projects, what we could expect could be accomplished. And then we've also heard, from some of the HWPI folks that there may be donors or members that would be interested in kind of bolstering the art budget for the tunnel specifically. And so, how that could work with kind of this, the public art commission process and how that could affect things. So with that, I think I'd just like to open up to all of you. We'd love to hear your questions. And, really, this is kind of our first time talking to you. We very much expect to be back, but happy to answer any questions you have.
Sophie.
Yeah, I'd just like to say how very wonderful and exciting this is. And it's great that you're thinking in terms of what art can you put in there, because as you rightly say, people do go out to experience nature, but there's always a fun surprise and something that people of all ages like when there's a really good piece of art that relates well to the environment. And even something like the very contemporary looking steel sculpture had a very kind of natural curve, like a grass in the wind or something like that. So it didn't seem out of place in that way in amongst the grasses. So I think it's wonderful. The difficult part in a way is figuring out how you solicit artwork and how you decide where those additional art pieces could go. Within the tunnel, for example, the flooring, I remember one of the tunnels recently by the river near Barton it had poured with rain when I went, and the day before had been a massive downpour and there was so much water around. And so I feel like something with tiling or something that's made out of very non-slip or very rugged and textural tiles would be a really good project to do that would be useful and as well as beautiful. And there are some things like that which are useful, especially those cairns and things like that. So oh yeah, we're up to here now, and I'm not as lost as I thought I was, and that kind of thing. So a lot of the art can be of use as well as just beautifying things and making it more fun and interesting.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point about water and the elements out here. Because of the floodplain levels and the fixed elevation of the railroad, we do anticipate that the tunnel will have water occasionally, likely in the spring. It won't be there all the time. That's another thing to consider. In addition to the railroad vibrations above, there could be additional constraints and or wear of tear on whatever art is implemented, if there is art in that area.
Thank you, Sophie and Hillary. Allison, I saw your hand next.
Yeah, I think some of the questions you had asked was about like what is public art and what is acceptable art and the process. So I would just say personally, like I love seeing the stone and other design aspects that help enhance the area. However, the more advanced projects that you showed with the stone built, like the sculptures built into the side and other options is what I would define as public art rather than just great design. And I would encourage you to go that next step with this funding because I think that's what we're hoping to see is not just a beautiful archway, but a beautiful archway that's enhanced with some artists' work. And I hate to limit the type of art by, and you know, like when you put out the call to the artists, if you have all these different areas, and I would even include under the bridge over at Gallup, because there's people that go under that, correct, and boats and stuff, as opportunities for places for art. And leave it open to their creativity, specifying obviously what the budget is and, you know, what there are some certain restrictions and things like that. And, you know, notifying them that it probably would happen after the construction in the Vandermeer case. But, you know, I don't think that you really need to say, we're only putting a bid out for a sculpture or we're only putting out a bid for something underneath it. I think really leaving it open gives you more flexibility and could potentially give you more submissions. We do have on our website, and maybe Vanita's already shared it with you, I'm not sure, but we put together several years ago our suggested way of doing a call for art and how you should run the process, including engaging with the community and having them be a process of the selection, a part of the selection process. So that would be like our guiding document of how we think it should be done. We haven't updated that in a little while, but I think it still stands the test of time. And of course, you know, along the way, we are always here to help and put in our 2 cents.
Great.
But yeah, it's really exciting. I think the stuff that you guys identified is great. Like those are great examples of what would be awesome to see there. And so you're already thinking about it. You're already finding awesome examples. I think you don't need us to lock it into something specific. I think keeping an open mind really is the best route. I know it would be nice to have it like, let's do this and make it more simple, but I love to leave it up to creativity.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we're used to working in the world where everything's defined before it's built and we plan for years. So I think one thing that we're thinking was if we did know ahead of time if there was a statue or something that we would design around or have a platform for integrated. But I suppose just thinking about, you know, as the design moves forward, we could also kind of do the call for art and get some of that information and still have some time to react to it, just given the long design timeframes we have.
Exactly. Like when you're getting some concrete laid, you could get the foundation for a sculpture if you know you're getting a sculpture. But that's why it's great that you're talking about these things this early on and hopefully could, you know, get that locked in before you'd have to go backwards and do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that I'll just kind of piggyback on that is the tunnel space is a pretty tight spot to be working in. A lot of that is railroad right of way. So we will have to place some restrictions on the artist in terms of what they can and can't do because Amtrak will have to approve it. And that's a process that an artist does not want to do. I can almost guarantee that. It's more than our art budget just to have them look at our engineering plans. So I think that's one of the aspects of this. And then also, like was mentioned, but if there are opportunities for us to incorporate something within the tunnel, that's why I think we wanted to start on this early, because if there needs to be an engineering consideration due to the weight of the stone or because the artist needs a platform in this location or something like that, we can accommodate that now, but we won't be able to accommodate that once the design passes a certain point. So that's why we wanted to start the conversation today.
Thank you. And John, I saw your hand up.
Great. And I agree with what Allison said, but let me say that if you can get an Andy Goldsworthy, I will donate money to have an Andy Goldsworthy piece in our town. I don't care what he wants to do, where he wants to put it. You know, I mean, it's worth it. So, and along with what Allison was saying about what is art, I would like to encourage you to think about more than sculpture, but not to exclude sculpture. I mean, you know, there's a planning term, placemaking, and that kind of brings to me what art is about. It's about creating a place, and it can be a lot of things you can do it with. And I know you had said that it's very difficult to incorporate art within the design. I know it is, but that is the most exquisite art. And if you just look at what Goldsworthy has done, and really that Amsterdam mural, that is incorporated really kind of in the design. And so you've done your homework as well. I mean, that's the good thing. You've taken a look at other places, and two places that come to mind. Well, the tunnel. Let me just deal with what Pete was saying about the tunnel. Chicago has some wonderful artwork and tunnels right by the river walk, and they incorporate light. And so you could, you know, rather than, I noticed on the one tunnel that's there, you have just a strip of neon going down. Well, you could be creative with that in terms of the color and how it's sort of washing that tunnel, and make it, you know, very creative, and it could be incorporated, you know, as a part of that. But you know, I would hope you wouldn't be too discouraged about trying to incorporate design. That's the gold standard of Percent for Art, which is this incredible program that we had here briefly. The other thing was the bridge, the going across. I forget where it was, but your
Park. Yeah.
Yes, Gallup Park, and Seattle has these wonderful bridges that they literally incorporate text within the bridge elements, and it's a discussion about the use of water, where water comes from, the value of water, these kind of aphorisms and sort of best practice, all this kind of stuff through text, and it tells a story, and it can teach you things. And Seattle has done some wonderful things in libraries doing exactly that, putting text kind of on the floor of libraries. So, and that could be incorporated within those planks. And you could, you know, there's all different kinds of ways of sort of doing it. So I would encourage you to think outside the box in terms of art, beyond sculpture, beyond something that's just kind of stuck on. And I mean, Pete said it all. I mean, you came to us because you wanted to do it before the design got going. That's what we were hoping that we could do, is that and we have a public art idea book. And so we have probably 300 or 400 different images of murals and all kinds of different things around the world. But I would explore Seattle and Chicago. I think Victoria Island has some public art in that respect as well. But let me talk a little bit about the outreach. And so the one thing that, you know, I've been on the Art Commission way too long, but the one thing that I realized, if the community isn't a part of that process, no matter what you do, even an Andy Goldsworthy, they'll probably thumbs down it. So you really do your outreach. And, I mean, and Mary Thiefels knows how to do this better than probably anybody, but, I mean, and Allison has been here, the artwork that is really appreciated. I mean, painting a rock on Huron is a beloved piece of art, a rock, a boulder. I mean, because people use it, they love it. So the more that you can do, this is the start, but the more that you can do in terms of that outreach and getting ideas and getting people to participate and to help, it builds a constituency for your artwork. And there's nothing worse than a wonderful piece of artwork that is ignored or derailed. And the Dreisaitl piece in Ann Arbor is one of my favorite artworks, but people hate it. They literally hate it because it was imposed on the community as opposed to, grown up from the community. So I just went all over the place, but in any event, think outside the box, and we're always here. We'd be willing to help in any way we can. So thank you.
Can I ask just a brief follow-up on that? I really appreciate those comments. With regards to community process and selecting an artist, or maybe this is a question for Mary, but what's the best way to go about that? Because we don't want to go too far down the community process road without an artist to,
Allison
interpret
had,
that feedback.
We have a several step process to to sort of, it's trying to get it into a concept, and how you get the concept is going out and asking people. So you kind of have public meetings, something like this, and telling us what you would like to see here, giving some ideas and which do you like best in that. And we have it on, I think Vanita or Allison has it. I mean, so we have best practices. Exactly. Well, you should, excuse me, kind of get this concept kind of out of the community without having any particular idea. So you needs public meetings. And then, then you narrow this concept down, and then you have kind of a task force that even refines this even more. And those people on the task force are from the community. And then you have a jury of people that know what they're doing with public art, maybe a half dozen people. And so that jury sort of reviews it down to maybe 2, 3, or 4, and maybe just 3. And then you have the top 3 that you'd be satisfied with, whichever one of those 3 makes it. And then you put it out to sort of a public, kind of online. We don't really care what you do, but some type of that first of all, defining the concept by broad outreach. And really what that does is it educates people that, hey, there's an art project going on. Oh, it's going to be down here. Oh, they asked me. Yeah, I didn't know what, so you get to talking about that. Then you get a task force of people that have been kind of through this and maybe represent elements of the community. And that task force sort of refines the concept. And then that concept is a call for artists. And you can do it 2 ways. You can do it a request for proposal or a request for, like you would select an architect or something. So, and I would recommend that you don't, narrow the artist. So you just, you say that we like their work, and we're confident that these people could really sort of do it. And then they, you get to, depending on how much money, you don't have a lot of money. If it was a larger budget, you would give them a stipend to come to town and maybe do a maquette of something. And then that maquette would be voted on by the community, but you don't have that much money. So it's really kind of getting all those elements to kind of focus it down into the top 3, and then, let the community at large kind of, pick from the top 3. That's just my idea. And you can see 9 other people, and they'll all have probably different approaches to it.
But that's pretty in line with what we have put together in that document.
Thank
Okay,
you,
great.
John. And
Yeah, thank
Sophie,
you.
you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting another bite here. I was just thinking some things about the way art is used, and with the tunnels and what John was mentioning about the light. I mean, the way a tunnel appears when you enter it is part of the safety feature. I don't know whether it actually makes it safer. I suspect it does, if it looks bright and interesting and welcoming, and has something in there that you would want to go into as a place. It's very different from kind of scuttling through under one light. So I mean, the feel of the tunnel is hugely important in how people feel about using it. Another thing about art is the interactive nature of some art. Obviously, kids love walking along low walls, and sculptures that people can actually handle or climb on, or aren't in any way delicate, are really important, especially in a park setting where nobody's around. You need to have it. You not only need to have it, but it's desirable to have it so that people can lean on it, sit on it, climb on it without anything bad happening. The interaction with the environment, there's a wonderful wind sculpture which nobody ever sees because it's in the back garden of the Ford Library, presidential library on North Campus. And it's this incredible sculpture that does all kinds of different things with the wind, and you'd never believe it was only a light wind that was making it do all those things. It's just amazing. Another thought I had was about seating. Obviously, seating can be just a park bench, but seating can be 101 different things, and that's a real good opportunity for having some kind of art that's integrated into the actual physical environment. And then the last thing I was going to mention was about with looking for artists, is that if you can get a sort of open invitation to, well, whether it's open or whether it's individual invitation to some artists to actually come to a site that you have sort of marked as a possible spot, and have them talk with you about what the constraints or needs or criteria are for that particular spot. And they can get inspiration from the place, but also understand how you see it from a practical point of view. And that makes it much easier for the artists to get ideas, I think, if they're getting the inspiration of the place and the understanding of your requirements as well.
Thank you, Sophie. So these are such exciting projects, and we definitely want to be there to support you along the way. Just something, Mary and I actually just worked on a project with the water treatment plant, a mural, and the way that we helped was just joining some meetings with their staff to help with putting together that proposal, the call for art, reviewing the initial artists, having those conversations. So that's something that we can definitely do. We can be there along the way to kind of help guide that process. So we're definitely willing to sit in on any meetings that you might want our advice along the way.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it.
Could I
John?
just, yeah, one quick last comment. I'm sorry. There are a bunch of artworks along the border-to-border trail and in the parks. I think it's called Can You Imagine Art? And those projects, some of them are absolutely spectacular. We only paid the artist $5,000. It was an RFP. I was absolutely blown away. Part of what it was is that we promoted the fact that the artist's artwork would be incorporated within the Ann Arbor collection. And it was the placement of it was going to be on this border-to-border trail. So that might be a real asset to leverage as a part of your sort of promotion, that everyone wants to have it in the collection of Ann Arbor, and the border-to-border trail gets a lot, and they'll get increasingly more folks. So just as an aside.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
John.
One question I have is just, I guess, talking a little bit more about the process. I know you mentioned there's this resource online that we'll definitely review. But just thinking more about like how the concept is developed and how the community is engaged. Do you have an example of any projects that went through that and what that kind of looked like? Because I guess for me, I'm just wondering, is the concept, you know, things that the art should relate to, such as we want it to be about water, or is it something more prescriptive, like we're looking for a seating element? I don't know. I liked, early on you kind of mentioned like not putting a box, making the box too tight to kind of allow for artists to interpret things. So just kind of looking for your kind of idea of what that concept that the community would be providing input on might look like.
Allison?
You're muted, Allison.
This isn't a perfect example because they already had identified specifically they were going to do the wall, but one of the projects, the bridge over on Stadium, by the Michigan Stadium, that was actually managed by the Art Center, but that was a city project and they put it out for a call and didn't specify what had to go on the wall. So it could be a mural, it could have been, and so they got all sorts of different types of submissions. Obviously the final submission is those metal sculpture pieces that were installed, which probably wouldn't have been submitted had they said, we want to put a mural on the wall, and put it specific to that. But yeah, I mean, that process, they specified that they wanted something that was safe in the environment. So like there was a lot of traffic with cars there. So there were certain restrictions on what could go there. I would see in your proposal, you have identified, and I think it's great that you want something that is more of a natural theme that fits in with the environment. And the water treatment plant, they specifically said they wanted a mural or something that celebrated the history of the water treatment plant. So those sorts of specifications on the themes of the project, sort of maybe materials, even if you have specifications on materials, that kind of stuff. And while you already have some of those ideas, I think that engagement with the public could help drive that a little bit further and have some further ideas about what people want to see when they walk past those types of environments, and maybe hone it in a little bit more. But those calls, I feel like they're in our resources somewhere, and you could look at those. We definitely have the water treatment plant call somewhere that you could look at as far as like the restrictions they put on that call. That was a much more specific call because they specifically wanted a mural, but it goes into like themes and timelines and all that kind of stuff, which will give you the basic bare bones of what you would want to include in that.
Great, thank you, that's helpful.
And I wouldn't shy away from the aesthetic. I mean, in your presentation, it's very clear the aesthetic that you're going for because you have so many visual examples. And that's absolutely fine to put in a call for art. I think that can be helpful. It can help guide an artist, but artists have obviously wonderful creativity, so they are going to take that and run with it. The call for art, as Allison mentioned, for the water treatment plant was pretty specific and did mention even certain, art genres. Diego Rivera, as an example, the Detroit Industry mural. So there were actually, visual examples of pieces of art that they liked. And we got things that were very close to Diego Rivera and things that were very far away, and you get everything in between. So it's not bad to add those visual examples for sure.
Great.
I just have a comment. Hillary and Peter, thank you so much for that presentation. I think the parks have been an incredible partner to art and public art over the years. And I've watched it happen. I think the Border to Border Trail is just blossoming. So just amazing work on that. I live out in Waterloo, so I'm seeing lots of construction in that area with the Border to Border. The comment that I want to make is you don't have to let everybody give input on the design. You're welcome to create a steering committee of folks that are kind of a cross section of the community. And I would encourage youth voice. I would think about who you'd want to sit at the table. Creating a press release to get excitement around this is always a good starting point. MLive is great for that. So you really get to shape this how you want. And, there's lots of different examples on how to do that. Are you keeping this like regional? Is this a regional call? Is this a national call? So thinking about that and, funneling in what's important to parks. And, if this is a pilot project for you, keep it insular, keep it small, but, let the community know what's happening. I think people just like to know what's going on. I was on the committee that selected, that worked to select the artist that Allison was talking about. And it was an arduous process, multiple panels, just so many things going on. And then ultimately, a lot of people were unhappy with the art. So you really get to make this how you want to, and certainly, shouting it out and letting people know what's going on, but you get to design it. And I'm happy to be a resource. I didn't notice a chat, but I was going to throw my email into it if I saw one, but I don't see a chat option. But treetownmurals@gmail.com. You're more than welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions or need some resources about how to put out an RFP or an RFQ.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Thank you so much, Hillary and Peter. These are amazing projects, and we are, again, so happy to support in any way that we can. Thank you for coming tonight. Does anyone have anything, final words to say before we move on to our next item on the agenda? All right. Thanks again, Hillary and Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think the next item, we're going to go back to report from staff, and Vanita, that was, oh no, what we just talked about, of course. So we will move on then to report from committees. And so first on the agenda, we have the nominations and leadership team of John and Allison on our 2022 leadership report. And I will hand the floor over.
Thank you. I think everyone's received the report regarding our survey, which we have been doing since 2017, is just trying to get people's idea of what they're looking for in leaders and who they think best fill that, and if there's any interest in being one. Allison is going to step down because of, like all of us, many other things that.
And by Allison, he means Sarah.
I mean Sarah, not Allison. Yes, Sarah. And we would hate to put you through another year, Sarah, but thank you very much. And no one else seems to be interested. And as I indicated in the report, that Allison and myself are willing to have our names put forward only if there's no one else that wants this. This is not something that, we probably have a lot of other things. I know I do. I'm sure Allison does. So, but we're willing to do this until we can recruit some other leaders. And I have emailed back and forth with Jamal, and I think maybe Jamal might be interested in continuing as vice chair for another term. I see his head shaking, so that lets me off the hook. Yes. So that I have had discussions with Mary. Everyone thinks Mary would be great. I agree, but Mary has so much on her plate. She probably would do it if we twisted her arm, but I'm not so sure it would serve her or the Art Commission best. So the recommendation from our committee would be for Allison to step in for the chair, and Jamal continue as the vice chair. And then I'm willing to really focus time on trying to recruit some folks and to sort of build, in particular, this leadership council that we've talked about. It's a council that is already formed, that we have kind of missions and stuff like that, but we just don't have anyone. It's a body that we can appoint ourselves members to. And and I have talked with Mary about working together to try and activate that. And hopefully that could give us new people that want to just, tip their toe into the art commission kind of community and see what it's like. And maybe we'll get some interest out of that. So that's our plan. It's I wish there was a better plan, but that's our report and our plan. And we're more than willing, Allison and I, to answer any questions you might have. Allison, do you have anything to add before?
No, you covered it all. John called me after we got all the surveys and nobody wanted to be chair, and just kind of said, "You've done it before, you want to do it?" And I said, "If I have to." So the thing is I ideally would just be doing this for a year while we kind of recruit more people who might be more interested in doing the leadership roles. Maybe Jamal, you'll find more time on your plate and more comfort in the potential of being chair after another year as vice chair. So that's kind of what we were going with. But I obviously stepped down from the position for a reason. So if there was anyone who wants it, it's open as well. But I'm not going to leave us in a lurch. So
I do appreciate the nominations, and I do see this as a role that I could really thrive in. The timing is a little tight for me, so I'm going to use this next year to kind of see and really ponder, because I want to give it 110%. But I wouldn't want to just fill the place. I'm really I see a lot of potential with the Public Art Commission in our growth, in the way we develop our own community. And so when talking to John about really growing this advisory board or friends of the Public Art Commission, I do also see this project that I'll be embarking on with the underpasses as being a huge step in that direction. There are a lot of people that are coming into my circle that are supporters of public art, that have dollars, that have buildings, that have interest. So I'm going to use this year to kind of see how this project goes, which is so epic. And then hopefully grow this advisory team, and then potentially in the future step into the role as chair. But I do need some time to think about it.
Sophie?
Yeah, I have a question about the what are we calling them? The advisory team. The group. Is this the list that we made of people who might be interested in supporting the Art Commission in some ways? And it seems to me there are two aspects. There are people who would want to support in terms of finances or maybe publicity or things like that, and then there are other people who might want to support in a more hands-on way, in whether it's finding artists, doing art themselves, considering doing art, considering being on the commission. And they're not entirely there must be overlap, but they're not entirely the same group. And I don't know, are we going to have some sort of meeting with them? What's the plan to
Well,
do?
the idea is we've created a group that's broad. So we're not saying you have to meet at any, one meeting a year is all the commitment we're asking, and that you're willing to list your name on this group. And, that's all the commitment we're asking from them. Then it's up to us to create some way in which these individuals can be engaged. And at the very start, I imagine it's just giving them information. So giving them information about what we're doing, what our plans are, and what art's going on, and just so that they have a way of getting a feel for what's going on. So, but I mean, the first step is to answer a lot of the questions that you brought up, Sophie. How would it happen, and what would they do, and I think we have a name, and that's it, and we have no members, and and that we can appoint them. So I think that Mary and I, if we can work together, we can throw some ideas out, and in a few months, we hope to be able to pull together some sort of a plan, and people can refine the plan, and then we can move forward with that. But Mary brings up a very good point. I mean, she's going to be engaging a number of people. I mean, from kids to donors, and I think I see it. What I was reading into what she said is an opportunity. Well, hey, if you want to get even involved, why don't you allow me to, put your name forward to the Art Commission for yada yada. And and the immediate question is, what do I have to do? Well, you don't have to do anything. You just have to bring an interest and to be your name on a list of other people that are also interested. And we hope these are the benefits that you'll receive. So that's kind of our hope. And this is just a broad brush sort of outline draft that, we'll be able to kind of refine it. But I think Mary has something to add.
So I just want to point out that administrative roles within the arts in our community have really shifted. The Ann Arbor Community Foundation, the Ann Arbor Arts Center, a new administrator to City Council, the new DDA director. We have a new team, a new force of people that if we position ourselves well, that we can get art on the good side of all of these people, and that we can really start to create a new conversation in our community. And that excites me.
So that I believe there is a working group for that leadership group. To wrap up this working group's work of nomination, we are not nominating or voting for chair or vice chair today. I believe that will happen at our other December meeting, per the earlier discussion. So at that time, you guys can either put your hat in the ring for chair or just vote. Is my understanding.
Sophie.
Yeah, I still feel like we could use a couple more members. I think we're spread a little bit thin. Everybody seems to be on several committees. And I don't know if we would want to make that happen, and if so, how that would happen, to open up to a couple more members. Is that a possible thing?
That's part of the leadership working group, is getting those applicants. We have applicants that Vanita has put together that we've looked at and made some recommendations. But that was, I believe, one of the goals of the leadership working group, which includes chair and vice chair, though I don't see why another commissioner couldn't be on it as well to help. But we do have one vacancy right now. And we do have applicants, but we also have, as we saw from the leadership survey, some ideas about people to reach out to and invite to apply as well, which is always open, I believe, to any of us on the commission.
So if we did want to have more than one additional commission member, would that go through the city council, or how would it happen? Would we have to sort of put in a request, or how would that work? Anybody know?
We only have just one opening, Sophie. I think all boards and commissions have a standard number. I'm not sure why the art commission ended up, we'll have a total of 9, right? Yeah. But I can check into that with the city clerk if there's an option of adding additional people. I'm not sure why the number is set.
Thank you, Benita.
You're welcome.
And I just wanted to say a thank you to everyone for allowing me to be chair and learn a lot this year. I'm just really thankful to all of you. You have all just enriched this experience so much, and I will obviously still be here. And I am just so thankful to Jamal. You're an amazing vice chair, and hopefully will continue to be an amazing vice chair. And John, as always, being a great cheerleader to try new things. And Allison, you are a fantastic chair, and you got it going on. So thank you to everyone. So I guess the voting will obviously happen at that December retreat, which we still need to decide a date of when that can be. So I don't know if that's something we want to try to decide on this call. I think that might be better as an email thread where we can try to designate a time and date.
Yeah, December is almost over, y'all.
It is.
Yeah.
It
We
is.
should discuss this ASAP.
In the world of retail, it seems like there's a lot longer to go, but yes.
I can send emails out to you guys and get a couple of dates and check the main city calendar for openings. Again, it can be during the week. We could also do on a Saturday. It doesn't have to be in the evening. It could be midday, it could be morning. So once we select the date and how folks are most flexible, we can get it fairly quickly, hopefully.
Is this going to be in person or virtual?
I could do either or, John, but you said you prefer virtual, so that'd be fine.
It's not that I will not come to an in person, so
That's fine.
So that and that's fine with me.
Yep. No, let's just keep it virtual then, because for all participation. Yep.
Thank you. All right, so I think we're going to move on then to the next committee, which is just going to be special projects. We do have a note about the Golden Paintbrush flyer that's finalized and opening nominations for Golden Paintbrush 2023. So the special projects working group met yesterday and we talked, and Vanita actually emailed at the perfect time the finalized flyer because we all happened to be on a call at that time. So that was amazing work, Vanita. And we were able to move forward with the Golden Paintbrush 2023. So we are going to open those nominations, and then we're also hoping to, this kind of goes into the communications working group slightly, but place an ad in the January Observer, Ann Arbor Observer, the January issue, just shouting out the Golden Paintbrush Award and the fact that nominations are open. Special projects, we will continue as the process goes on to tweak maybe some of the judging criteria we had for judges last time and just kind of smooth that process out. But we want to make sure that we get the nominations out and communicated about first and foremost. So that's kind of the major action item from special projects. And Sophie. Oh, and you're on mute.
Yeah, I have done some tweaking of the documents from last year, which hopefully the special projects group have. And I think, Vanita, I shared that folder with you also. And it should have in it, off the top of my head, the judging criteria, a PDF showing what the nomination form should look like, and FAQs, and maybe there's one other thing anyway, but 4 things which are for the 2023 nominations to start coming in, and hopefully that means that the graphics department or whoever it is would be able to put the nomination forms and those other information on the website so that people can actually start nominating, and it's open for when the ad appears in the Observer. So let me know, anybody, if you feel there's something missing or errors or confusions. That would be good.
Thank you, Sophie. So we discussed some other things during our special project update, but I know that we are coming up on time here. So I'm going to move to our next working group, which is the CIP working group. So that is Allison and I currently. If anyone else wants to join, there's a couple openings there. Obviously, we have some great things being done with these parks projects, which all come from that CIP work. And I just have to thank David Esau, if he's here, he is listening. A lot of that work he did help that process move forward. So we did receive the 2023 CIP list, and Allison and I from Veneta, and Allison and I will meet early in the new year to discuss some of those projects and recommendations for art enhancements. Allison, do you have anything else? I think that's where we are with that. So thank you for getting us that list, Veneta.
Yep.
Thank you. And then how about business owners and developers? John, any update?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. The outreach working group, I believe Marionetta, Peggy, and Sophie. Do you guys have anything to report on the outreach front?
Sophie's always a great note taker. Sophie, do you have anything? We did all meet.
Yes, we did meet. We did meet, and we were thinking of various things we should be doing, really, including ideas that we'd had earlier and hadn't really. I don't know. This year, nobody seemed to be able to get our act together very well, including me. So we were thinking of it would be very nice to be able to put some things onto our website, and I'm not sure what we can and can't do with the website, but it would be lovely to have something like some interviews with the Golden Paintbrush awardees about their work, and the website could maybe have links to things like local calls for art. I don't know whether that's possible. We talked about trying to link to other art which is public in Ann Arbor but isn't the public art, our collection, whether that would be a possible thing to link to, like the U of M is the obvious one. Yeah, the website is something that we talked about quite a bit because we feel that it isn't alive enough, and it needs to be more attractive and somewhere that people would go to find information, to find something about art events or calls for art or things about art that are happening in the city, and make it change more often. I think that Veneta,
Peggy?
correct me if I'm wrong, the overall graphics and design of the website is fixed. Is that true? So we're going to change that.
I'm sorry, Sophie, could I ask Peggy a really quick question as you guys were meeting, kind of along the same line? I think Peggy had sent some information to me as well. Also, I have a question about a community calendar versus having things added to the website, because I think we've visited that before with city officials, and because the Public Art Commission is an advisory body, I believe what they're going to say, that the website is not for things like that. So I'm wanting to know if what you all might be interested in doing might be better served through some of the community calendar items that we may have through some other city avenues. So I could look at that and I could double check again with communications. I have a feeling that I know communications they don't want us touching the page. We're going over right now a complete overhaul of the whole city website, removing pages, trying to make standard pages with standard information and standard links for the public. But linking outside of that to other art institutions and things that I'd have to do a little bit more checking, but I'm wondering if a calendar, some other mechanisms might work to do that too.
Okay, that's really useful. Thanks, Benita. Yeah.
Okay, I can check on that.
Yeah, we were just interested in having a way to make it more interesting, more lively. So
yeah, yeah.
And have more pictures and have more pictures on it. So I mean,
yeah,
it would be nice if it could be a bit more visual, including like a slideshow of our collection or the winners of the golden paintbrush or things like that. That would be nice. A little even video snippets of interviews with them if possible. But I don't know whether that's a thing that could happen.
Let's see what we can find. Yeah,
it seems serendipitous that you guys are working on a whole overhaul of the website in general for the city. So a good time to put in some requests and see what can happen.
Right. Yep. The other thing we were wondering about was the CIP, the Kerrytown development that John was talking about earlier, for example. Do we have any involvement in calls for art for things like that, or is that left up to the developer, or how does that work? Anybody?
It is within our CIP, right? It is a project that was selected. So it still would have the option of going through our don't we have a booklet of our art selection process? We do have a pamphlet, or there are some mechanisms and some steps that we use for that. But if it's not yet assigned, you'd be looking at the same kind of thing that just happened with the Border to Border Trail. Once that project is assigned to somebody, if there's art there, we know that there's art there. It's just a matter of who it is assigned to. And I'm not sure, Sarah, if on that list it might have had a staff name attached to it already, so we could start reaching out in that way as well.
So
yeah, I don't remember.
It also depends which Kerrytown project you're referring to. So are you referring to the one that's on the corner of Catherine and 4th?
Yes.
Because that one, that's a city project, and that I think is through housing. Yeah. Then there's the one that's like right behind Detroit Filling Station, and that's a private one. And so then we don't actually have any affiliation with that, other than when they present their plans to John, who as part of the design review board, he gets to put in his 2 cents and say, put in public art, and kind of toot our horn that we exist. Right. And so that's the only real input we have. And then, they could always come back to us and use us as a resource if they so please. But as a private developer, they don't have to do anything beyond what's already happened, that project.
Yeah, no, I think, John, that you already encouraged them, and I think that they took you up on the ideas of having various bits of art in that project, the one behind the filling station.
Right? Canopy and so forth. But I think what Sophie's talking about is the one that the Housing Commission has. That is a CIP project. And so I'm assuming that was identified as potential, and that the Housing Commission wants it to be a creative community center. So, and they have locations on the outside of it so at the design review board, I recommended a rotating gallery on the outside, and they like that idea. And so that they're actually planning to give preferential treatment or preference to a certain amount of residents that are artists, however that's defined. So they actually want artists to live there. And the ground floor is to be gallery and exhibition space. And the outside is going to be designed in such a way the bricks has to be indented so that you could have a narrow three-dimensional or visual work on the north side of the building. You know, at the moment, it's just getting the building together. There's nothing that is public art that's being integrated within the structure other than this gallery-like space, I guess. So that's the best that I can share with you at the moment.
And I like the idea of for any new CIP projects that are approved and then assigned that we send out a packet that maybe includes that information on recommendations for how to hold a call for art and an invitation to come to a meeting, something like that. Allison, did you have your hand?
Yeah, I love that idea. So let's do that, Sarah. But the other thing I was going to say, as far as making the website more lively, I think our hands might be tied a little bit with the website, but I love the ideas of having interviews of like the Golden Paintbrush people and having more pictures that more better paint what we're doing. But maybe the better avenue for that would be through the city's Facebook page. And, you know, we haven't had the best luck at this in the past, but we can always submit information to communications and ask them to share it. So like if you guys come up with ideas and you have content or images that you want to share, I think the more we send stuff to them, the more likely it's going to get shared. Right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Well, and we actually talked about at the special projects working group, even adding a kind of like standing agenda item to our meetings where if people just have any ideas for post ideas that we could give to the city communications, just kind of have an added agenda item. So maybe that's something we discuss further at the December retreat. But yeah, right. If we have the photo and the copy, then who knows what could happen. So great. Well, if there is not any more from the outreach working group, I'm going to go ahead and move on to communications. That is myself and Allison. And am I forgetting anyone on that group? Did we have someone else join, or was that wishful thinking?
Marianetta, did you join that one?
I thought Marianetta did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. So we haven't met, but it sounds like we have some great ideas for things that we can start doing. And of course, communications about the Golden Paintbrush. So that observer ad, all that great stuff is going on now. And hopefully we can meet soon and discuss more ideas. And I'm sure more will be generated at our retreat. Allison and Marianetta, do you have anything you'd like to add? Great, fantastic. Then we do have our fundraising working group, and I believe that is Mary, Allison, and myself. We did meet to discuss, Allison, actually, will you take the floor for this? I know that you understand a little bit better than I what is going on there.
So as you all know, we have the small bit of money that we earn interest in our money over at the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation. And so we were talking about having a specific process for projects to come to us to submit for funding each year for some of those dollars. So we kind of discussed what kind of ideas we would want to put forward and what that budget would look like, what that process might look like, and kind of got the ball rolling on that. We haven't put together the criteria yet or the application, But that's our next steps, is to get that going and hopefully get submissions and maybe grant out some money in 2023.
Yeah, the idea is that this mini grant could really generate some interest across the community. I could see it bolstering projects, maybe not funding entire projects, but being just an additional coverage. And I think it's important for the Public Art Commission to be more active and have our name on more projects, big and small.
I love the idea of mini grants. I think that, some of these projects have massive, budgets, and it's really important that that happens. But for a great many artists, a few $100s can make a massive difference. And, then you get lots of little things springing up here and there, which is always going to be fun and interesting, and would certainly be a reason why people might come to our website if there was a way of getting funding for things. So, and then those people will have more input to us as well. So it all, has a positive impact, I think.
Thank you, Sophie, Allison, and Mary. So I believe that is our last working group. So before we adjourn for the evening, does anyone have any final thoughts? Anything you would like to add? Marianetta?
I just have a question, since I'm kind of new. I haven't been to a retreat before. So I know that nominations is going to be on the agenda, but what happens at a retreat that's different from what happens in our regular monthly meetings?
It's a time to brainstorm for the future and set goals. So this meeting helps generate a plan document. So the 2023 annual plan that will go to City Council. So we can kind of give them an idea of, this is what we'd like to do in 2023. So we're all on the same page. So it's a lot more, I've experienced it as a brainstorming session, a collaboration, and it's actually one of my favorite meetings because we get to do idea talk and then we get to implement it for the rest of the year as best to our abilities. But that would be my interpretation of the retreat. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add about that description?
I think it's a really fun and kind of casual time to really put your ideas on the table. I believe it's a closed meeting. Is that right? It's not open to the public. Is that correct, Sarah?
Sorry.
No, it's open.
It is open.
Oh, it's open. Okay.
Usually no one comes, and usually we do it in person. But
right. So, I mean, I just attended one of these a number of years ago, and there was a good synergy. I think it's a great way to kind of grasp the next year and really put some challenges to the commission and collaborate. That's what we get to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianetta. Does anyone else have any final thoughts? Right. Well, I have one shout out. I know that York is holding its Winter Artisan Market this Friday and Saturday from noon to 4. Sophie, I know you were in that, right? Last time. Yes, there are going to be some amazing artists there. So just wanted to give a little shout out to that event. Sophie?
Well, if we're shouting out events, then also this weekend at the same time, there's the Winter Art Tour, which has 11 venues, mine is one, and 70, 80 artists. I'm not sure how many. And so if you look at the Winter Art Tour website, you'll find who they all are. And some of them are open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And some of them are just open one or two of those days. So you have to check out who you would like to visit at the website, winterarttour.com.
That's awesome, Sophie. I also want to give a shout out to Tiny Expo, which is happening at the Ann Arbor District Library. I think that's just one day though, Saturday.
Yeah, you can do free printmaking, I think, at that event also, which is kind of fun. 4M venue is hosting an artist meet and greet with one of the guild's artists, and he'll have work up there. If you haven't been to the new 4M venue space over where Lucky's, like the grocery store used to be, it is phenomenal, and I highly recommend you go for this event just because you can do art stuff and see their space all at the same time and get good food and drinks. So, and
When
you
is
can go
it
to Tiny
again,
Expo.
Allison?
It's on Saturday,
Saturday.
from 11
Okay.
to 2. Everything's on Saturday and Sunday this weekend.
I heard about that new place and I have been dying to go.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. Yay. So look at this. So vibrant this weekend. Lots of options of things to do and celebrate art. So with that, I will make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting. Or yes, I'm making the motion. And then I have a, all right. And then can I have a second to adjourn?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, then any discussion, final discussion?
Just thank you, Cynthia, for being here. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you for
Cynthia.
having me. Nice to meet you all.
And all right.
And
so
Olivia.
then- oh, sorry. And Olivia, yes. Thank you, Olivia. We
Thank
hope
you so
learned-
much for having me. This was super interesting.
Great, great. And feel free to come back again.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So then is there a motion to adjourn?
All in favor.
All in favor. Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you
Arr.
all. Have a wonderful meeting or a wonderful evening.